YouTube fan Droopy Dog sent me the carburetor from his GZ250. So today I'm going to show you how to clean and rebuild a carburetor. So I'm going to clean this in a two-step process. The first, I'll stick it in my carburetor soda blaster to clean the crap off the outside, and then I'll take it apart and clean all the internal passages and all the little parts with my ultrasonic cleaner. I don't want the blasting to shove any of this dirt and grime into these air ports or anything inside the carburetor. I'm going to protect the inside with some window tape. And now I can put the carburetor into the blaster to put the lid on. And I'll let the blaster run for about 30 minutes. Looks pretty good on the outside. Now I can take it apart and start working on the internal components. The link on how to make the carburetor blaster is below in the video description. Before you take a carburetor apart, it's important to have a nice clean work surface and also something to put the little parts in. I'm going to remove the cap of the carburetor, and under that is the plunger, needle valve, diaphragm. And be very careful when you remove the last screw. You have to hang on to the lid because there's a bunch of springs under there and you don't want to lose any of them. Lift the diaphragm out of the carb body so you can pull the plunger out. And then flip the carburetor over and take the bottom bowl off. So in the float bowl is all the jets and valves and everything that we need to clean up and rebuild. The floats pivot on the nail that also holds it in, so just take a zip tie and force it out the other side. And be very careful with the floats. And below the float is the needle valve, float valve seat. Then remove the main jet and the primary jet. And be careful when removing the primary jet because under that is the pilot jet and the idle jet. And then when you loosen up the main jet, the emulsion tube can be pushed back out through the center of the carburetor. That's the emulsion tube. Now I'm going to put all this stuff in the ultrasonic cleaner. Now that everything's in my ultrasonic cleaner, I can let this run for a couple hours. There's been some discussions about what to use to clean carburetors. Some people say pine sol or lemon juice or simple green. But I found the best thing that works to clean carburetors is carburetor cleaner. So all my parts are clean now and I just need to dry them off. If you want to learn how to make an ultrasonic cleaner, the information's below in the video description. So now with all these parts cleaned up, I can inspect everything and continue with the rebuild. So there's some liquid in this float. It must have a pinhole in it, and look for little bubbles. I just need to solder these little pinholes so it doesn't leak anymore. No more leaks. Droopy Dog also included one of these cheap kits that he found on eBay. It's supposed to be for a specific model of motorcycle, but many times the brass parts, specifically the jets in these kits, are kind of mystery sizes, and many times they're mislabeled completely. And also some of the O-rings are not fuel safe, so I'm just going to throw all that away and continue to inspect and refurbish his carburetor. There's a little pinhole in the carburetor diaphragm, so I'm just going to patch that with a little diaphragm tape. The piston's in good shape, but there's a couple of burrs on the needle, so I'm going to remove this and polish it up. I'm using very fine diamond paper. On the fuel jets, you never know if a previous owner used some wires or something and shoved them in there to clean them out and enlarge the hole. So to make sure they're the correct size, first I solder the hole in the jet. Then I use the proper size micro drill bit to make a new hole through the jet. The float needle is also pretty worn. It's got a groove all the way around. So when it fits into the seat, that also might have been leaking fuel, causing Droopy Dog's bike to flood. So I'll just take a little diamond paper and clean that up. And blow air through all of the fuel circuits and air passages. Now with all the jets resized properly and everything clean, I can start to reassemble the carburetor. Drop in the pilot jet, then the idle jet, then the primary jet. Make sure you don't over tighten these. Brass is pretty soft. The emulsion tube actually goes in from the top side. And then the main jet screws into the emulsion tube. The needle seat and the float needle. Then the float, and don't forget to put the nail back in. And always check the proper float height with the gauge. And put the float bowl back on and make sure you tighten the screws in a crisscross pattern so the gasket seats properly. And put the spring back on the mixture screw and then tighten it all the way down and then back it out 1.5 turns. The piston only goes in one way. When you insert it, make sure you line the diaphragm up with the indent in the top of the car body. Then install all of the piston springs into the top of the carburetor and put the cap on and retighten the screws. The float bowl and the cap are pretty dull. I'm going to take those back off and polish them. So this should polish up real easy. Sweet. Badass. If you want polishing tips, I have a video. The link is below in the video description. And no charge for the polishing. So I've got the car boxed up and ready to send back to Droopy Dog. I'm also going to return his Shyster kit. I really didn't throw that away. And clean and rebuilt carbs are so badass. I'm also sending him 5 out of 5 Ichiban Moto stickers. Have an awesome week, and I'll see you guys next time. Subscribe for weekly Ichiban Moto videos.